Let's talk about mapping. I received this article this morning courtesy of a company called Mapit, and it says here, digital mapping is proving to be the hidden secret weapon of South African business, and that's according to Mapit Chief Executive Officer Etienne Low. In the studio in Johannesburg, the Power Lunch studio, to talk about mapping, digital mapping, is Arthur Goldstuck, the MD of Worldwide Works. Arthur, I have to tell you before we start this conversation that you're talking to somebody that if I need to go somewhere, I reach under the passenger seat of my car and find a map book which half the pages are missing anywhere and they're all upside down. I haven't got a clue what digital mapping is, so you're going to have to enlighten me.
Well, the basic form of digital mapping as you would use it is you would reach for your phone and you would call up a map application on your phone, and it would find exactly where you are, and it would tell you how to get where you want to go if you're able to put in the directions properly. That's a very basic tool. Some of them are very inaccurate, some of them are quite difficult to use. But what we are finding from our research is that it's becoming a tremendously powerful strategic tool in business in South Africa. So our survey that we did on behalf of Map IT was amongst corporate South Africa as well as SMEs to try to find out the extent to which they're using digital mapping as a business tool, but also how important it is and how strategic it is in their businesses.
Sorry, I called Map IT, Mapit. That shows the extent of my ignorance. I can understand a logistics company needing this. Why does a normal SME or any other business need this tool?
In fact, every large corporation in this country has a logistics department, or at the very least, a fleet management function within the organization. And the fleet managers or the logistics managers or even the IT managers are finding that digital maps are a core part of what they do. They couldn't do their job effectively if they didn't use it. In the SME environment, we also found that fleet management was becoming a more and more important part of the SME's ability to be productive, efficient, and even competitive. But more important than anything else for the SME was security. So tracking services use digital mapping, for example, and vehicle recovery services when a vehicle has been stolen or hijacked also depend almost entirely on digital mapping services these days. You have your tracking service, which you imagine is just something that sends a signal from your car and they find the car, but that signal wouldn't be trackable without digital mapping.
You say that 76% of South African corporations, 38% of SMEs spend more than 2% of their IT budgets on mapping services, and presumably the trend is upwards, so it could get up to, I don't know, 4 or 5% at some point. Is that money being recouped because of savings of time, savings of efficiency, etc.?
For the corporate investor in these technologies, it's definitely being recouped, because what we are finding there in particular is that productivity is as important as security in the corporate environment. So if digital mapping and the investment in digital mapping is enhancing productivity, then certainly there is a return on that investment. But something to bear in mind is, as a proportion of IT investment, it's quite a small proportion. It's big when one thinks that digital mapping has come from nowhere and people don't see it as even a line item in the budget. The fact that they are spending more than 2% of IT on it indicates how important it is. I think a key question that we asked is how satisfied are corporates and SMEs with the digital mapping services they get, and more than 3/4 are expressing strong satisfaction with the effectiveness of these services.
And in fact, you talk in your final paragraph in the report that you kindly sent us this morning, it says the following: the main reason companies don't use digital mapping is that they don't know what it has to offer. 1/4 of SMEs say lack of knowledge is the main obstacle to using such tools. For corporations, there were no significant obstacles to using such services. So it's a question of education, and I suppose that's where you come in.
That's exactly what it's about. In fact, in the corporate environment, what you find is that when they are trying to make the businesses more efficient, they investigate what's available and they invest in what will be the most effective tool. In the SME environment, it has to be something that's already blindingly obvious, that everyone appears to be using, and that clearly works without even having to think about it. Mapping, they still have to think a little bit about it, and they still have to be informed. So we're hoping to keep them informed.